All right, we're going to call the regularly scheduled Animal Welfare Board meeting to order. It is 6:06 p.m. on Monday, November 10th, 2025. So, calling to order the Animal Welfare Board meeting. Um, sorry. Before we move forward, let's just confirm, do a quick roll call to confirm quorum. Isa Webster, District 1.
Katie Factor, District 3.
Yoshina Colbert-Bradford, District 6.
Vivian Dumford, District 2.
Marley Wiggin, District 4.
Karen Levy at large.
All right, with that, we do have an established quorum of board members. Just another reminder, as we go through the agenda for board members, during the presentation or reporting piece, we'll allow the respective individuals to go through their portion, and then we'll wait towards the end for any questions of that particular report or presentation. Please raise your hand so I can call on you if you do have questions at that time. All right, so moving next on the agenda is just the approval of this current meeting agenda as well as minutes approval. If there are no concerns or edits to be made, we can do one full motion to approve the meeting agenda as well as the minutes from the last board meeting held on August 11th, as well as the last special call dangerous dog hearing. Minutes of that meeting were, the meeting was held on July 25th of this year. So could I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve agenda and all minutes.
All right, so the motion was approved by Katie Factor, seconded by Yoshina Colbert-Bradford. All in favor to approve?
Yes.
Yes? Yep, majority confirmed. The agenda and the meeting minutes for both the Animal Welfare Board meeting from August and the special call dangerous dog hearing from July have been approved. All right, that was a lot. We'll move forward to our usual portion of the meeting, which starts off with a shelter operations report from Lifelong Animal Project. Who is going to start that presentation?
That would be me. Do these things work? Great, you have to get right on them. It's very hard to hear.
Or speak really loud, like.
Or speak really loudly. And with... You can go ahead, Trey. Thank you. Next slide, please. We covered this one. Here we go. Shelter intake. Okay. So as you know from the last presentation, this is a long list of statistics that you have asked for. So I'm just going to jump on some of the highlights. I think what is most alarming about all of this, is that our intake is up 20% over last year, and last year was a record. So we're on track for an intake between 10 and 11,000 this year. That is as high as it was back when I started Lifeline in 2002. It's higher. It will be the highest intake that we have ever dealt with. So that is not the good news. That is something I think I would really encourage everyone in the room to really start thinking about what it is that we need to do upstream. Obviously, spay-neuter is a major factor in that, but it's even more so. Like spay-neuter presents bursts, and we do have quite a few puppies and kittens coming into the shelter, more than I've seen before. But it doesn't really address all of the factors that are causing animals to come into our shelter. And that's where we really need some outside the box thinking, because everything we do at Fulton County Animal Services, almost everything, is reactionary. Even when people are coming to us for assistance, we're still responding. By the time they get to the shelter, it's too late for an intervention. And so we really need to look at more ways as a community we can support pet owners to keep their pets out of the shelter. I was struck by the hearing earlier where these were problems caused by animals being off leash, and just more about what can we do to really start to address what's causing animals to come into the shelter. My whole presentation just disappeared, so that's all I need to no, go ahead, Trey. Next slide. Intake by jurisdiction, we see 68% of our intake is coming from the city of Atlanta. Next up on the list is kind of a toss-up between South Fulton and Fairburn. But the majority of the animals coming in are coming from the city of Atlanta, which means solutions need to focus more on city of Atlanta. Next slide, please. Shelter outcomes. This is a good news slide. While we saw intake increasing 20%, we're seeing adoptions increase 34%, return to homes increasing 11%, transfers to rescue increasing almost 13%, and then also our save rate is increasing as well. So we are keeping pace with the intake, but it is an enormous amount of effort. And I know some of you, there's some volunteers in the room, some of you are volunteers at the shelter. You know the process that we're going through with the urgent at-risk list and urgent list every week to try and keep the population numbers down. We really need some solutions to look at the intake because we're really working as hard as we can on outcomes. And I got to congratulate the team on having some success at that. Next slide, Trey. Yes. Well, she can ask. It's easier to address questions in the moment, but I'm not going to overrule you. So.
I just noticed the massive spike in TNR, especially literally.
That is good. Yes, there is a massive spike in TNR because we started doing more TNR. So it's really we're very. We have more people devoted to being able to talk to people about TNR and help provide those resources. Did you want to add to that, Audrey? No, really. That's the question. So
Was that based on like citizens bringing in animals? Like those numbers were just met
it's
as needed, or
all
was that an
citizens
initiative?
bringing in animals.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's
Awesome.
a voluntary thing.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not. The officers don't go unless a cat is sick or injured. Generally, the Fulton County ordinance doesn't require cats to be on people's property or on your own property or leash laws or that kind of thing. So there's not an ordinance to enforce when cats are free roaming, but they will pick up cats that are reported as injured. The next slide, then. Our foster program is also increasing. We haven't done the math to the side here, but I believe that's about a 24% increase in the number of animals going to foster. And so we're seeing an uptick both in dogs and cats. And we're going to talk more about the foster program after we get through all these stats. Next slide. I believe we were asked to show some of the adoption promotions that we've done. So these are some over the last couple of months. We had a couple of Clear the Shelter events. 2 for the price of 1 cats and kittens for the summer because we did have a pretty big influx of kittens. And we are seeing a pretty big increase in cat intake. So we're looking at more creative ways to generate more outcomes. Next slide. I'm not sure why this is in here. Just talks a little bit about influencer support. I'm so offline that I don't even know the word for people who are not so plugged in. But I am not plugged in, and I guess this is Instagram.
Well, I mean, I will say these influencers are at the shelter regularly. Every Thursday they come in. So we would, particularly with moving urgent, I see the same faces every Thursday night. So I think influencers have been a big way that we've been able to reach people perhaps that we haven't been able to reach before. We've been seeing a lot of success from them. We get a lot of support from our influencers.
And these are there's some pretty clever posts here as well. So we're really we're really grateful that the animals have the support of people wanting to help. Next slide. Our volunteer program. This just gives you a snapshot. About 100 between 160 and 180 volunteers each month, active volunteers, putting in over 1,000 hours. And so thank you very much to our volunteers who make that possible. Next slide. And we'll send you these separately. Calls for service. We are also seeing an uptick in our calls for service. So about 1,000 more this year over last year. And consequently, we're seeing an uptick in the impounds on our from field services. Next slide. You saw that Atlanta had 68% of the animals coming in. They have 60% of the calls for service. South Fulton is way ahead of Fairburn on that one. They were going neck and neck on the animals coming in, but South Fulton is the next greatest area for calls for service. And then this kind of gives you an idea of the breakdown. This is something that you asked for. What are these are the basically the priorities for animal services. It's how they're categorized, and of course the highest is still loose loose animals or confined animals, and animal welfare is all into one. Welfare checks is in one category. So, but the stray animal calls are still the highest, I think. And then the next slide is just the other jurisdictions. You'll see South Fulton is kind of up there. Next slide. Okay, this is really interesting to me. So this is something that Isa asked for, and we were like, huh? And so we calculated it per 1,000 human residents so that the numbers would have some meaning. And so this is the number of calls that come in per 1,000 human residents for each jurisdiction. And I think this is something for my county counterparts who are here, they might find it interesting as well, because it really lets you know where the activity is coming from. For example, there are 30 calls per 1,000 human residents in Chattahoochee Hills. There are 2 calls per 1,000 human residents in Alpharetta. So it lets you know that there are really where the activity is really happening, more than just dividing it by jurisdiction. This lets you know how dense the density of calls in each jurisdiction. So I thought Atlanta would be higher, but it isn't. It's East Point, Fairburn, and then South Fulton is still up there. And of course the northern cities are a much lower activity, 2 calls per 1,000 human residents in Alpharetta, Sandy Springs 3.4, Roswell 2.7. So when you compare north to south, you see a real difference in where all the activity is. So thank you, Ozzy, for pointing this out. I'm going to look at this every time. Now, Marley, thank you, Marley, for pointing this out, because it does give us some insight into where the services are really being utilized the most, and what's most labor intensive for field services. Okay. Violations, dog at large, still the highest violation, and then just kind of breaks down fairly evenly after that. Neglect and cruelty would be next on the list. Usually the no Fulton County license and no proof of rabies, those are usually not independent violations. Those are usually on other violations when an animal is impounded and doesn't have a tag or proof of rabies. Next slide. Oh, more. violations. Case violations by jurisdiction, we still see, of course, the City of Atlanta getting the most citations and warnings, followed by South Fulton. And pending court cases. So I'm going to let Captain Dwyer address this a little bit. I do not know the difference between open and pending because I think all of these cases are open and therefore also pending. So, but if you know, have any more insight into this, because I know she's been working pretty diligently at trying to see if we can get some of these animals released.
So this was old formatting from prior management. All of those cases are pending. We're just waiting on either court dates, trial. So we currently have 83 dogs in the shelter that are on court holds out of 24 cases. So these are cases where the dogs have been confiscated, usually due to cruelty or neglect. And we are either through the solicitor's office or the district attorney's office just waiting for the court process to take place, which is very frustrating. Some dogs have been in there 1.5 to 2 years, and if they're the victim of animal cruelty and then now they're turned around and they're punished for 1.5 to 2 years sitting in a kennel because the owner will not surrender, it's been very frustrating. So we're working with the county attorney and solicitor's office trying to get some of these cases moved forward. About 2 months ago we had 104 animals, so we have been going through old cases, contacting the owners and asking them again if they want to surrender, reviewing cases to see if these dogs need to be on court hold. So we are doing our best to try to get that number down, but we're at a standstill right now due to court.
Yes. So still 80, I believe there are probably 68 or so of those are animals within the shelter. Our public clinic, this is a wellness clinic, so we're running, I believe, 3 days a week in the afternoons. And then this last quarter, we saw 226 clients through our public clinic. That's something we do hope to be able to increase over time. It's also it's a resource that belongs to the shelter animals, so it's also trying to make space for to be able to provide public services and still make sure that all the shelter animals are cared for. Next slide. Pets for Life program is an independent program that Lifeline runs, but the advisory board historically has wanted to see these numbers. We are seeing some increase in our Pets for Life activity. We also did the 2 Healthy Pets events, so we're done for the year on Healthy Pets. I know the one that we did in the spring, there are over 1,500 animals were attending that one, and about 1,200 in the one that we just did a couple, I guess it was just last month, time flies, that we did in partnership with Councilmember Lewis, City of Atlanta Councilmember Lewis. I think there may be another slide. Staffing, yes, this is the last slide for this part of the presentation. Just shows you our biggest gap is in field services. I believe either Vernon or Trey will be addressing that, or Captain Dwyer will be addressing that during their portion of it. I do want to let you know that our field services right now, Captain Dwyer is acting as the interim director of field services. So that's why she's speaking on that, and that's also why she did the dangerous animal hearing as well. And we're grateful to her. Anyway, some openings in all of our departments, but nothing compared to the field services gap that we have. And sounds like something's happening out there. Okay. At least it's not gunshots. We're okay. Trey, I'm going to go forward with the next one too, if you want to pull that one up.
While that's being pulled up, is there
foster-
any questions from that shelter operations report? I actually had some questions. I think Captain Dwyer had mentioned it 2 months ago, so I'm assuming that's around the August timeframe. You said there was the 104 dogs, and it's now been reduced to 83. Do we know the number of cases that Delta was related to? Was it one case, two cases that were closed, or what have you?
It was multiple cases. I would have to look up the specific number. Either they've gone to court, or we've been able to review the case and maybe release some of the animals, or we've gotten surrenders in that time frame.
I think there was one that was fairly large that they were able to get a surrender on. Was it?
Okay.
You're still there? Okay.
And then my last question, glad to see we now have no vacancies for vets, that there's now 3.
Yeah, we continually fill that in. So we have 2 veterinarians on staff, and then we fill the 3rd position with relief vets. So we've always had that filled because we can't afford not to. But there technically is a full-time position open, but it is we have the vets on staff, or
Okay.
on the vets working. Let's put it that way. They're not on staff.
Any other questions for the shelter operations report? All right, we can move on to the foster program.
And Audrey is not feeling that well, so
Yeah, we're going to tag team this. I have a migraine and I'm seeing swirlies in my eyes. So Rebecca's going to carry me a bit. Thank you.
I'll do the best I can. I think the main thing about foster, so with all that intake you saw, our foster program, we've got over 60% of our animals currently in our care are in foster homes, and it's just way better. It's not nearly as stressful as it. There's nothing about a shelter, no matter how nice of a shelter, that's natural for an animal. So it is much better for the animals, and much more likely that we'll get some insight into an animal's behavior to be able to make a good match for placement. So reduced stress, they're staying healthier mentally and physically. We learn more about the animal, and then that also helps reserve the shelter resource for animals who are truly in crisis and need to be there. So we're very grateful to all of our fosters and everyone who's advocating for fosters. It is seriously life-saving at this point in time. The next slide, please.
Can
Yeah,
wait
so I
the-
mentioned it's, I think it's one of the larger foster programs in the country. There are 578 dogs, 229 cats in foster the whole year. In 2024, we sent a little over 4,000 animals into foster, about 4,400. We're above that number already in 2025. So the foster program continues to grow, and we continue to be grateful for everyone who steps up to foster a pet. And it's really easy to do. We'll get into that. I'm always trying to convince people to foster. Our Friendly Finder program, this is a program when someone finds an animal in the community. It is a part of our foster program. We enter, if they're willing, we put the animal in our system. We give the Friendly Finder some resources to help find the owner if that's at all possible. And then they have the option when the friendly finder period is over, they can become a regular foster, they can return the animal to the shelter, or they can adopt the animal. So it's keeping about 40 or 50 pets out of the shelter each month, and we're very grateful to the people who choose to do Friendly Finder. Our average length of stay from placement into foster to adoption is less than 30 days. So that's, and I think that's for, you have to, length of stay is all over the place, so this is measuring just for the third quarter of 2025. As you start to expand your time frame on when you're measuring length of stay, it starts to be less accurate. So this is where we are currently. Next slide, please. don't have a whole lot of requirements for fostering. You do need to be over 18. We ask that people live within a reasonable distance of the shelter, and that's because we want them to be able to come to the shelter if they need to bring the pet in for veterinary care. We do provide the veterinary care at no charge, but if someone is, if they live 100 miles away and they want to foster and they have an emergency, if they can't get to the shelter, they're going to have to be responsible for the care. So if people are willing to commit to that, then they're allowed to foster as well. The state does require that fosters do reside within the state of Georgia. We're obviously, it was so obvious that Trey just skipped over it. We'll go the other sign-up notes. I'm not sure what this means. We do try to remove barriers to fostering. We're not asking people if they're owning or renting. We try to streamline the foster process as much as possible. Once someone's already approved and ready to foster, that we're able to move the animal to them as quickly as possible. We do have a pretty good support network for our fosters. They receive an email with the foster manuals, emergency numbers, orientation videos. We have a 24/7 program that people can use that has a texting to a veterinarian, and then we are able to use that to help triage whether or not someone needs to see a vet right away or whether it can wait till the shelter opens the next day, that kind of thing. We have revised our systems so that inquiries are getting to fosters much more quickly, and we're trying to have some more oversight around that. And then fosters who's coming to the shelter before filling out the form, the foster application, will be asked to fill out the foster application in person. You do have to eventually come to the shelter in person to be able to foster.
And just to sort of speak to, I know a lot of people who foster for us are watching this meeting, so I just want to address the more obvious things that are going on. A lot of these are automated responses, so we can make sure that people are hearing from us immediately and they have the tools available to them. But we are short right now on our foster team. They are very stretched. We have 2 open coordinator positions open, regular foster coordinator positions, and 1 cat care foster coordinator position open. I know that the team has had some good interviews, so we're really hopeful that we will have some acceptance soon. But I know that has really stretched the team pretty far, and I know that's pushing to some additional stress for our volunteers that have been helping us so much during that time. So I thank them, but I just wanted to let everybody know that is absolutely a priority to get some people in. We have some great coordinators right now. Renee and Bryce are really holding down the fort, and Lane has adjusted his schedule to be able to sort of help with the coverage right now. So thank you for all of the patience with that, but it is top of mind to try to get those staffing positions filled as soon as possible.
Okay, next slide, Trey. Ways to foster. So we have general fostering. That's what thankfully most people are doing. And that tends to be for lack of space, but there's also fosters around behavior socialization, court case fosters, people who are taking litters or neonates, especially people who are willing to take little litters of unweaned kittens, that kind of thing. Again, medical, heartworm, special needs, and then people who are willing to do short-term fostering to quarantine for our rescue or transfer. We have also, in addition to those opportunities in the general fostering, Dog for a Day. Studies show that a dog is 5 times more likely to be adopted after doing a day outing. So this is where you just come, check out the dog for a day, take them to, not to dog parks, but to public places where they can be seen. Or even if you just, we did a study where I think it was, I want to say students would take a dog just as a study buddy for a couple hours, and it did show the reduction in the dog's cortisol levels. That was a study we did with the University of Virginia. So any time out of the shelter is great for the dogs. Weekend warrior, 14 times more likely to be adopted after a weekend stay. And then different event fosters, where we have dogs placed in a week. The week before Thanksgiving, that's the Home for the Holidays thing. We also have a trial adoption where it's, and that's run through our adoptions team, which gives someone an opportunity to, if they've got some concerns about how the dog might get along with their own pets or that kind of thing, it gives someone an opportunity. Any, all dogs and cats that are adopted that don't work out can be returned to the shelter, and we try to make that a fairly painless process. We do want people to use the resources they can to try and make a situation work, but it's not a problem to have an adoption returned.
And I just, for the short-term fosters, I think we really started embracing a lot of short-term programming around like 2016, 2017, of just trying to come up with easy, simple ways that felt friendly for people to come in and take a pet home. And it really shifted so much of our programming and increased our life saving tremendously. I think that's actually why our foster programs are so large now, is because we have such easy pathways into them, and they're pretty simple.
And it's also a great way to get more insight into the dog and be able to make better matches every time. So, next slide. Lots of cat fostering opportunities. It's different. A lot of it is around bottle babies or kittens that are not yet weaned, or that are weaned but not yet ready for spay-neuter. Certainly families with moms and litters, and of course the trial adoption program as well. And then there are the same, it's not quite the same in terms, not a lot of socialization or behavioral fosters for cats, but the opportunities are there. And of course there are medical and special needs, and we don't have any cats in court cases right now.
Yeah, that's something I'd like to grow, is a little bit more of the socialization, because the cats really do struggle in shelter. We have so many cats, and we have more cats right now in our foster program and in shelter than we've had in quite some time. So I think it's an area that we really need to expand.
Probably ever.
Yeah.
The old Fulton shelter wasn't built to house cats, and so that kind of limited what happened there. Okay, next slide. What is kitten season? Okay. Kitten season is just, it's actually, there's no such thing. It's year-round here. It used to be we'd start seeing an influx of kittens from March till about October. But I walk through our facilities and see kittens in December at this point. So it's really year-long, but it does have times when it's much greater. April tends to be the most incredible month. What it says, one female cat can have 16 kittens across 4 litters a year. It really emphasizes the necessity of spay-neuter. A kitten's best chances of survival are with a mom. Kittens that are brought in without moms, unweaned kittens brought in without moms, only have about a 50% survival rate. And so we really do encourage people to go back and find the mom, or if they know that there's a mom there, to take the kittens back to the mom. And then we do have this flow chart about what to do if you find kittens. I can't read it from here, and I don't want to mess it up, but it is also available on our website. I don't know what "don't kidnap" means, but I think it means not to steal kittens from a nursing mom. That would be my. You lessen their chance of survival substantially when they don't have their mom. And I'm very grateful to the people who do all of our bottle feeding, because it's a very labor intensive and certainly a labor of love. So, next slide. Thank you. All right. That would be it for the presentation on fostering. You have questions I may be able to answer. Yes.
First of all, I'm a big fan of the Friendly Finder program. I just see there's just no downside to it. Have you guys, I'm just curious to know if you've been able to convert or know a percentage of people that you convert from Friendly Finders to like continually fostering?
We do have that information, but I don't know it.
It's pretty high though. I don't have, I can give you the actual numbers when we get back to the shelter.
I
A
think
lot
just
of-
knowing it's high is good.
Yeah, I mean, we started the Friendly Finder program in 2019, and it was pretty new, and we started trying to play with it. I remember it pretty well because we were still in the trailers at the old shelter then when we were first rolling this out. And it's really original intent, and it's still its intent is to get the pets back home to their original owner and to try to connect those dots. Part of the struggle about animal services, as everybody knows, is you just lose so much information. It's not like the animals can tell us where they came from, and so we're trying to make stories out of nothing. And so the thought was trying to figure out how we can support the community to where they can help their own neighbors and maybe go back and we can give them resources and be a part of the solution with them. It was really more intended to be a sort of lost and found program. We do find most of the people that opt to participate, and not everybody does, and that's, we try to make it as welcoming. It's a consent-based program. But most of the people that do offer to do Friendly Finder have the intention of adopting or fostering already, so they tend to already lean that direction. So I think it's a little bit easier to get them to stay in the program. So it's a pretty high conversion rate. We don't have a whole lot of pets that go into Friendly Finder actually return them to the shelter after the stray hold.
I think that's great. I just love that program.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was it.
Anything else on the stats? Fostering?
I have a
The shelter.
question that you might not be able to answer now, so you might need to get back to me. But so 60% of the animals, I guess total animals, are actually in foster care. That's a tremendous amount
Roughly, yes.
of animals.
Yeah.
Have you guys compared foster expenses versus care of animal in the shelter? We know if an animal goes into foster, the nice tagline or what have you is, the shelter provides everything, right? The shelter would provide vet care, crates, food, all that stuff. But I can only imagine that an animal in foster care actually costs more to care for than an animal at the shelter.
Well, I think I do have that breakdown. I don't have it off the top of my head, so I can kind of research it, at least in terms of what we're investing. But the foster's making the investment, right? So it's shifting some of those costs to the foster, even though, we're paying staff to feed them, and so the foster's doing that. So the foster service is something, that we're not quantifying. The vet care and those kinds of things tend to be the same. Even on the food, though, I think lots of fosters are, they may take advantage of being able to get the food from the shelter, but I think probably a majority of fosters are footing the bill for food. So it's really the vet care expense, and in that respect, it probably runs about the same.
Any other questions? All right. With that, we will move on to old business, the old business items in the agenda. So old business is essentially areas that we initially started to talk about at previous board meetings, and we never really came to a kind of resolution or conclusion. So the first piece of old business is court dog management. So this kind of stems from the last board meeting where I forgot who asked the question, but there was trying to get an understanding of the feasibility of utilizing things like motion to dispose and cost of care petition. I think, Captain Dwyer, you mentioned some of that earlier, but do we have a more detailed update on where we are with that?
There's two parts to it, solicitor's office and county attorney's office, and we're not getting very far. I'll just put it that way.
We do have a meeting scheduled this Friday with all those parties. And so I do know, and I've been in a couple of meetings with the county manager, and he's made this a priority. So I'm hoping we'll see some progress. Right now, there's been no action taken.
And you said the meeting was this Friday, the 14th?
There is a meeting this Friday, the 14th, that the county attorney is attending, and also someone. It's my understanding that the county attorney, the solicitor's office.
We are working with the solicitor's office on the misdemeanor cases where there will be at least a day per month where all dog cases are heard. Last we spoke, which was about a month ago, they are backlogged over 500 animal cases still waiting to be heard. So we think that would be a good step in the right direction. And especially cases that have a lot of animals. We have one case where there's 30 court-hold dogs from one of our cruelty cases. If we can get those big cases specifically heard sooner rather than later, it would clear a lot of space and help out.
What exactly would you all need? And as a board, is that something we can help facilitate?
Well, there's a couple of different things in play. So one is just the calendar for the court, and that's something that the solicitor is, I think, working on to try and get some of these cases accelerated. Animal cases are not the only backlog in either of the counties that we work with. So that's just an issue for the courts. The different mechanisms that could get an animal released before the case is tried, before the case is concluded, those are mechanisms that that's what we're speaking with the county attorney about, to see if we can get some of those mechanisms in play. And that's the ones that Isa mentioned, the motion to dispose and the cost of care. Now, cost of care does not get, it's a separate civil claim that's filed, petition that's filed. It doesn't get an animal released, but it does make the defendant responsible for costs until the case goes to trial and is resolved. And sometimes they do choose to surrender the animal rather than pay those costs. But the motion to dispose is a different vehicle within the criminal case that the agency impounding the animal can file to ask for the animal to be disposed of before trial. It's most helpful if you have a case where a defendant's not appearing. The issue that keeps these animals in our care is that they're considered property, and you have a right to your property. You can't be denied your property without due process, and so there has to be a process, and that process is just not very well defined in any of the counties, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions on court dog management? All right, so we'll move to the next item on old business, building repair maintenance. I did send some slides over to help. Oh, they're up. Yay. This is actually to remind me of what I wanted to cover. So these actually items have been at one point or another been raised sometime during the year of our animal welfare board meeting. I think most of them initially started in May, the May meeting. For the laundry room dryer repair, I know there's a quick update. Does somebody from EMA want to share the update on that dryer repair that's been broken for a good portion of since when the shelter opened?
So yeah, the biggest all of these topics
Yeah, I'm gonna go over the last four and separately, but because
No, that's
there's
fine, but I'm
okay.
just gonna let you know,
Okay.
all of these right now are sitting with Tim Diamond with Dream. But I'll tell you the status on them.
Okay.
The laundry room, the hold off is that the door at the entrance where the Sally Ports, the garage is, they need to basically widen that. So, because the drum won't fit through any door or hallway there. So the quickest and easiest way is to basically cut out a wall, make that all one big door, and then bring the drum through and put that up. So that's where we're at with that. Pest control, that should be an ongoing, they should be spraying. If they're not, then I need to know about it so I can get with them.
Oh, if I could just pause, Vern, if we can go to the next slide. So in terms of pest control, so this was raised in the summer, so the concerns really were related to ticks, wasps, flies, and mosquitoes. On the first picture on the top, so this is a street view image of the shelter because I could not find very good photos. But all the way to the left of that tower, there is, tall grass being grown, so that's kind of where the ticks were discovered. I know that is off county property, but the volunteers walk in that space for lack of spaces to walk. So I don't know how the ticks can be addressed in that space, and we all know ticks and dogs are not a good combination. So
We cannot do anything with that property.
okay,
If it's not county owned, we cannot do anything with it.
except tell volunteers don't walk there.
Pardon me?
Except tell volunteers don't walk there so they don't get ticks and the dogs.
That's up to the volunteers and
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now? Yeah, so the volunteers have a choice whether or not they're going to walk the dogs down that path.
Okay.
That's on them. But the county cannot spray or do anything with that property. It's not ours.
Okay.
So
And then
I-
in terms of
Whose is it?
I was just about to ask that question. So with the property, is that unincorporated still? Or
I
is
don't know who the property belongs to. I can find out.
that- okay.
Because
was
it's
just gonna say-
alongside the power lines, it's probably a Georgia Power
Yeah,
property.
it's probably
because
Georgia.
those power lines run right through there.
Okay.
So at least in terms of the wasp, flies, mosquitoes, those are all on property. So those are all either on the play yards in the back and the rear of the building or on the front play yards. So do we have confirmation that pest control has started?
So if volunteers or Lifeline employees find a wasp nest or anything like that, they can alert CGL and CGL can deal with the issue immediately. It is my understanding that pest control has been out there. I've seen the rat traps that they're placing, so they've been out there. I can follow up and with the contractor and find out when the last time they were there. But to the best of my knowledge, they're out there.
Do they have a particular cadence in like quarterly, every other month?
I do not know that.
Okay. Could we find out?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I go back to that, the property and the grass? Are you going to be able to find out who owns it, you think? And then can they be approached? I mean, maybe they will do the right thing. Maybe they will do the right thing by their community and keep some of it from being overgrown.
I can't speak to that. There is a sense of liability for that property owner if they're going to start doing that, and if we, I mean,
We could reach out to them and figure out what they want to do. See how they can help.
I mean, I think that's something that, we could possibly pursue. Sometimes it's just a matter of education and being a good neighbor.
We'll look into it.
All right, next slide. So this is generally landscaping and grounds maintenance. Specific to the landscaping piece, concerns here are essentially just lack of maintenance. It is a lovely building. The grounds, not so much, if I'm being honest. There's a lack of pine straw that we initially had when the building first opened, lack of mulch, plants are dying. If we had an opportunity to zoom into those areas, you'll see a little better of the lack of landscape. Is there a landscaping plan of any sort for this building?
So I can give an update on that. So in reference to the landscaping, I met last week with our landscaping engineers from Dream, as well as the Atlanta Tree Club, I believe is their name. So we did visibly walk the property for about an hour and looked over ways that we could implement a more beautiful landscape. Right now with the cold weather, that's going to be our biggest issue because the tree organization is not going to be able to plant any trees until the end of January into the 1st of February. But there is a plan to plant additional trees. The only issue is that when this building was originally built, there was really no budget that was put in place for landscaping so much. So that's where we're allowing donations and organizations to help follow in where things have fell through. I can tell you that there are certain areas that we aren't able to plant any new trees right now just because that's where we plan on fixing the play yard issue. And some of that water has drained into those other areas that we would like to make beautiful by utilizing those trees. So until that play yard situation is kind of sort of summed up, those areas will be a little bit naked. But as far as the front areas, we do plan on planting some additional shrubbery and trees come the early part of, well, I guess the middle part of winter.
Yeah, and shout out to Jan and our volunteers, Jan and Amy. They reached out to Trees Atlanta. They were really great, so thank you to them for doing that.
All right, moving on to just general grounds maintenance. You don't want me to talk about these things? That's okay. All right. So there was actually, and I kind of spoke to this a little bit, there was a recent change to where volunteers are allowed to walk dogs. It's essentially to attempt, an attempt to curb the amount of basically dog feces seen along the exterior grounds of the building. So again, that image is kind of the top photo is gives you an idea of the vastness of what I guess I refer to as the exterior of the building. But this attempt to curb dog feces essentially mentioned that volunteers are not allowed to walk dogs along the exterior portions of the building. So on the left side of the top photo, it's essentially they can't walk dogs in the parking lot. And then along, the facade of the building, they're not allowed to walk dogs going down that hallway. That's a large area of do not walk dogs. And I feel like as, an animal shelter, there should be some level of expectation and even acceptance of animal feces. I know we don't like it, but this is a high volume open intake county shelter. So poop happens, right? I think though there possibly could be, if we can rethink how we address, trying to curb the dog feces presence in these areas. It was really more of a don't walk in these areas, but can we consider a different approach? Like in retail stores, you have folks whose responsibility it is to go to the bathrooms, whether it's every hour, every 3 hours, but they have that checklist. Can we have some kind of consideration from the custodial team or some staff members to ensure that they're walking the exterior portion of the property on a consistent basis to make sure that this doesn't happen, as opposed to saying, volunteers, you can't walk along these areas? Because even with the volunteers not walking along these areas, that bottom image on the left is essentially, for whatever reason, if it's not dog feces, it's food containers. That photo was taken at 10 a.m. in the morning, so well before the shelter opened. And on the bottom right photo, it's a little hard to see because there's shadows, but also volunteers are not the only ones walking down those sidewalks. Members of the public, when they're coming to either, take advantage of the vet clinic or bringing in, a stray animal, or maybe, they're a foster coming in to visit the vet clinic. They also walk through that space too.
Is there any liability if a pooper scooper company wanted to donate time and resources to come in once every X amount of weeks again, good neighbors might be interested in helping. Maybe an exposure exchange. Is that something that could be done?
Brad? I mean, we would have to explore that and what they would be doing in terms of if someone's coming to donate their time. I think a standard waiver would probably be something that would be something we would certainly want them to sign off on. But it would very much depend on what they were coming to do and how they were coming in.
I mean, it could be a tax write-off there's a lot of companies that do it. There's national companies. There are local people that do it. I mean, it's a business for people. Maybe there's something that can be worked out. I mean, wouldn't be an expense to the county.
I'd say it would, if they're donating their services, that may be one thing. But if we're starting to talk about an exchange, then we're getting into our sort of procurement area, which has a lot more rules and regulations around it.
I think donation.
They can go through Lifeline and work that through Lifeline. So if you bring them to us, we would refer them to Lifeline.
Was there a time between notification of the issue and then saying no more dog walking in front of the building? Because I'm just curious if there was an opportunity given to Lifeline to resolve the issue first.
So this has been an ongoing conversation between me, Audrey, Belinda, since basically they started having animals in the building. So during the wintertime, it still looks nasty with a bunch of feces everywhere. But during the summer, when it's hot, it's really foul smelling. So that's the biggest concern, besides it, people stepping in it, whatever. But it starts to really stink.
I want to remind the board that those areas also are not only just public-facing areas, but they're also areas where staff eat at. You have that big, huge, beautiful picnic area that staff can utilize as their break space, and that's partially the reason why it's a continuous issue, is because of the sanitary issues. We have worked with Lifeline diligently to try to come up with a solution. For months now, we've had several conversations. We think we kind of sort of got it under control now, and we always can continue having more conversations moving forward on how we can utilize this, especially once that back area is resolved and able to utilize that for our dog walking space for our volunteers. But for right now, to try to alleviate and eliminate some of it as much as possible, with staff still being able to, take care of the shelter as well as take care of the outside. The best decision is just to hold off on that for right now. But the doors aren't closed for that conversation for us to continue allowing volunteers to walk there. But right now, it's just a lot easier to alleviate that as much as possible, while there's a bigger solution that may come in play.
And we do have our staff are specifically assigned to clean those areas three times a day. So, and of course we ask the volunteers to pick up.
So you do have staff who.
Yeah.
And they actually do follow through. I see them do that.
Yeah.
In essence of time, because there are two other areas I want to cover in this portion, we're going to try to go quickly through this, because the next piece is play yards. This has been an ongoing question. Oh, such a cute dog, but that dog is so messy and dirty. The dog is cute. Would people want to meet that dog into a play yard when the play yards are so messy? I don't know. Second photo is a dog who clearly knows how muddy that play yard is and refused to actually go into that play yard. And that lovely image on the right is in its worst state. This is what the drainage issue looks like at the shelter. So do we have any, I know, Vernon, you mentioned that it's sitting with Dream, but the last meeting we had, if I recall, you were waiting on a second RFP. Has that come in? How long should we expect Dream to address these issues? Because we are basically moving into a new year.
And I agree. Last week I spoke with Tim Diamond. He said that he took basically he removed the responsibility of getting the contractors and the individuals that were going to start the repair from CGL's responsibility, and Dream has now took it on. I do not have an update. Like I said, that was last week or so when I spoke to Mr. Diamond about it. But I do not have a timeline.
What we can do, just to help the situation, at the next meeting, we'll have a Dream representative here. So you can ask directly these questions. In the meantime, you're welcome to, you could go directly to the Dream representative, so you can address things with Tim or Mr. Davis, who's the director of Dream. But we'll make sure that, we put an invite out to the Dream representative moving forward so they can address some of your concerns.
All right, yeah, that would be helpful. Because outside of the actual play yards, there's also some concerns about the play yard doors. I think it was brought up also in a previous meeting where the fence lines themselves were either loose or the gate latches were not can't properly be closed. So there's that safety element if a dog gets loose. So something also to make note of. I don't know if that's a Dream issue or just something that we need to continue to talk about. Last piece here, building access. So I want to remember I can't remember which meeting, but it was mentioned at another welfare board meeting where the play yards, the doors to the play yards in the rear of the building were supposed to remain open during operating hours because volunteers don't have key cards because volunteers are not actual county employees. This isn't always true. Sometimes volunteers volunteer on the weekend during open hours and we get locked outside in the back. In the event of emergency, if we had to rush in, whether it's an emergency for a volunteer, a potential adopter, or a dog, we're kind of, limited to running around the entire building just to get to the front. So how can we address this? You might not have an answer now, but I think it's definitely something that needs to be looked at.
So actually, there's some extra cards that when the shelter first opened, they were like just randomly used for new employees. I believe Lifeline, Audrey, aren't you guys still in possession of them cards? And they could issue, the initial plan was like for a volunteer to temporarily surrender their driver's license, and they get issued this card that would give them access to come in and out of those doors. And then at the end of the day, they give the card back and get their driver's license back, or some setup like that is what was suggested.
Is that still feasible? Do we have those?
I think we have some of them with our HR team.
Okay. If we can, I guess, follow up on that offline. I know on any given Saturday or Sunday, there could be like 10 to 12 volunteers at the shelter. I don't know how many cards there are. So, okay.
So there was quite a few cards.
Okay. All right. Any questions from the board? I know this was a lot, but I wanted to make sure that we get through this. So moving on to new business, we have 3 items on the new business portion of the agenda, but just in essence of time, do we have a speakers list? Was there anybody on the speakers list? There was only one person? Okay. Oh, there's 2. Okay, so then we do have time. I want to make sure we give time for folks who signed up on the speakers list, so we have time to do that and also go through all areas of the new business. So first item on new business is the field services transition. Is that going to be you, Captain Dwyer?
Yes.
Okay.
So field services, which are the officers that are outside of the shelter and respond to calls for service, will be coming under the Fulton County Police Department. So they will no longer work for Lifeline. They will become county employees. We are in that transition right now. There are approximately 20 Lifeline employees in field currently, and we're going to attempt to hire all of them. They're going through background checks, fingerprints, polygraphs, everything a regular county employee would do. We did open up positions, so we've created 6 positions. There's a manager, 3 supervisors, an animal services 2 position, which will ultimately be the trainers for other officers. There's a bite investigator, animal services 1, so that's beginner animal control officers, and then dispatchers. So we put that out and we received over 80 applications. So we're hopeful that we're going to be fully staffed at 28 once we're done. The transition will occur on December 16th. That's when they will transfer over to our police department.
Sorry, you said December 16th?
Correct.
And from a public perspective, does any of the services change, even though moving over to
Well, hopefully
services to the public?
hopefully they're better.
So the change for the better. Okay.
They'll change for the better. I mean, the police department has some pretty significant resources. They've got deeper law enforcement connections. So, you know, we're excited about that. As I mentioned earlier, Captain Dwyer is already acting as the interim director now under Lifeline. So the employees are still Lifeline employees, but they're reporting to her. That seems to be going well. It's kind of a new arrangement, but I've been excited to work with her. So I really have a lot of high hopes for it. I think it'll be a better service, a more unified, not more unified because it was all under one roof, but that will continue to provide a unified and higher quality service. But most significantly, I think the police department does have law enforcement resources that we just have not been able to supply, and even like body cams that are, you know, in the system, that kind of thing. Just a lot of it. I think it will be a better service for Fulton County. As far as the public's concerned, right now 911 already dispatches the officers, so nothing really changes about the process. You'll still call the same number, you'll still push the same buttons, you'll still get the same dispatcher, but hopefully it will be a better service. And also, I think the police department has more resources to put into hiring, and we have really struggled with that. So I think it's a good move for us, and I think it's a good move for Fulton County.
So one piece of feedback that I've gotten from people in my district, as well as honestly from myself, I didn't get feedback from myself, but you know what I mean, from my own experience, is that information about how to access field services can be kind of unclear, at least on the website. There's been a lot of confusion that I have seen people encounter in terms of like when to call, who to call, what phone number to use, when it's appropriate to call field services. So I am curious because I know all that information right now is hosted on the domain that is administrated by Lifeline. So I'm curious how that will be handled.
So all calls for service will go through 911, and they will then be dispatched to animal control to handle, whether it's a loose dog, a bite. They will all be dispatched through there, and then that way also so we can keep a record. What we're learning is a lot of citizens will say this has been an ongoing issue for a year, but they've never called to report it. And so that dog may be loose 5 times, but until they actually call, the first time they call, that's the first time. So, you know, don't be afraid to call, and it'll be dispatched accordingly.
I think a lot of people.
If I could answer that, Marley, the rest of your question. So right now we'll still be providing that information through that website, since it's one website. The county does have separate information through the county's website. There was a wrong number on the county's page, so that call had it. I don't know how long it was there. We discovered it, but if you have some suggestions that you'd like to present to us independently, we'd be open to it. And I know Captain Dora probably hasn't had a chance to really look at it yet, but she'll probably have some changes that she wants in the way that information's presented. But we don't have any proprietary interest in obscuring the information from the public, so if you have suggestions, that would help.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I can get in touch with you guys
Sure,
later about
absolutely.
that. But so just to clarify what you said, so will that 404 number be going away? So I know all calls are handled by E911 and dispatched, but there is that 404 number that is answered
Correct.
during business hours. Will we still have
It's
that?
always answered. So if you press option 2, I believe, for field services, that goes directly to 911.
Okay, and that will remain in place.
Oh, and it always has, well, it's been that way for the last like 3 years.
Process will change. How you get a hold of a field officer today is not going to change moving into the future. It's the same process.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify because I think
Yeah.
Captain Dwyer said 911, but you mean like 911 as in dispatch handles all the calls, but calls can come in through either calling 911 or calling the civilian number.
So it's essentially the same thing, but yes, that when you call the main 40465, whatever it is,
Okay.
and you push option 2, it goes directly to 911. It doesn't go through Lifeline, and it hasn't for the last 4 years. It has, the 911 operator is the one that's answering that call.
And just to be clear, depending on where you live, you won't get the same 911. So Fulton County, if you live in the city of Roswell, for example, you're going to get Roswell 911, which will then connect you to Fulton 911. So unless you dial that 10-digit number, you push and you get prompted to getting field services, that's the only way you'll get Fulton 911. But depending on where you live, you may not get Fulton 911 when you dial 911.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, so I did have a question just to kind of back up with the officers. I think that is a great change. My question would be, and you may not know that now, when we did a ride along with one of the officers, I thought it would be good if we could have 2 officers, and I know that does increase costs, but just riding with one officer, I look at it from a safety issue for the officer as well, because he's trying to hunt down the dog with the door open, try and get his tools, try and steer the dog in. It was a long process, and that was just an hour. So just a thought, maybe having more conversation around maybe increasing the number of officers. Again, I don't know how that will look for Fulton County.
So on certain calls, there are more than one officer going, so they can assist each other. But due to call volume, just like in law enforcement, a lot of times officers are riding by themselves. But if it's a more risky call, there are multiple officers going.
Okay. And then my last suggestion would, I do agree. I think whatever we can come up with a solution as far as to help kind of navigate the calls. I know we do this maybe I know it's done in South Fulton. They have like C-Click Fix. That's for properties. So like if you see a property that's in violation, like citations, yard maintenance or what have you, you take a picture, it automatically captures like the time, the date, and the location, and you send it into their portal. So I think it maybe having further conversation to see whether or not we can have like an app dispatcher for animals when people see an animal so they don't approach, or makes it a little bit safer. Once they see an animal, it automatically captures the date, time, and the location, and that can be shot into the dispatch where it won't interfere with 911, if that makes sense. It will be a separate system. I don't know if that can help navigate. And then you have a picture of the animal as well.
I mean, we can look into it. A lot of the complainants are willing to send us pictures or, further information when we do call them back. But
All right, I just have one question before we move to the next items on new business.
Actually, I have a question as well. Thank you.
You mentioned trainer, I guess, as a position. Are there going to be opportunities for more training for dispatch itself, like how to assess dog situations, how to maybe answer calls in a better way? We've had some feedback from folks that they might not have gotten good information or were not directed properly based on the types of calls that they were trying to make.
so we plan on kind of starting at the bottom and working our way up and retraining and looking at those areas where maybe it could be improved. So yes, that is definitely with all of these, we've had an uptick of dog attacks. So there is that bite investigator, and I think that's important and a good change. That officer will only deal with bites So we will have somebody dedicated also to dangerous dog to handle those cases. And then as well as in our same division, we investigate the animal cruelty, and that's really been successful. So I think overall, as far as you were talking about the safety, we do plan on getting the officers the same level bulletproof vests that we wear for safety, and looking at, possible bite sticks, things like that. And then of course, body cameras, they'll get the same Axon body cameras that we at the police department have, so they can access evidence when they go to court, review body cam footage. All of that will just be in the app for them to use. Also better communication. So we're looking forward to the change.
I think a lot of people are hesitant to call 911 when they see a loose dog, unless there's a danger, a dog bite. A lot of people get influenced to contact their zones and non-emergency numbers. Is there a pathway or education process to make sure that if
So
there are
those
calls?
get referred, like if you call the non-emergency number, that will get referred to
the zone.
It's
that
a little
police
bit
zone.
confusing because we're calling it 911, but it's basically a call center, right? So it's a call center where they can answer the calls always. You're not going to have to wait. You're not going to get a voicemail. You're going to get a human being, right? And so we're referring to it as 911, but it's not. If I called 911 from here, for example, I don't even think I would get the 911 that we're referring to. So it's Fulton County Emergency 911 Dispatch, and it's what the police department, Fulton County Police Department, has always used. But all the other, and Joe, you know way more about this than I do, all the other 911 systems and non-emergency line systems, they all have access to be able to have those calls dispatched by the Fulton County 911 system. So it's not that you have to call 911 to get animal control. It's just that we're using that same 911 system, and this has been true for several years, that same 911 system to actually answer the calls and dispatch the officers. So they're part of all the officers are, the 911 system knows where the officers are at all times, all of that. It's a much more effective way to dispatch animal services that we didn't have up until, I think it was 2017 that we switched it. Yeah.
The animal control number you referred to a minute ago, and you get prompt that you need an officer. So in other words, if it's 911, call 911. If someone's getting hurt or there's a life safety issue, just call 911. But if you need to put an animal control call in for service, you'll go get prompted, you'll push the number you'll get the non-emergency Fulton County dispatch line.
But a lot of people think to call their zone non-emergency number.
So if I live in the city of Atlanta, I'm going to call the Atlanta 10-digit number unless I have an emergency. That's not a zone, that's just where I live. But it's still all going to the Atlanta 911 center. If I live in the city of Johns Creek, I'm going to pick up and call a 911 if it's an emergency. If not, I can call the 10-digit non-emergency number for the police department.
Okay.
Every city has a non-emergency and emergency process. We're no different. So we're just handling we're no different is going to happen. Moving forward, it's the same process moving forward.
So in essence of time, because I do want to make sure that we give folks who sign up on the speakers list time to speak. Marley has one question, so we'll take her question. But from what I'm hearing, perhaps at the next Animal Welfare Board, maybe we'll take some time to kind of talk through, how dispatch works and what have you, so people can get a better understanding. So, Marley, go ahead.
Yeah, this is kind of a question, but also just kind of a request, if you will, because with all this discussion, I know that there's Fulton County 911, which dispatches animal services, but I know we have kind of a patchwork, like a quilt, if you will, of all the different municipalities that are within Fulton County, and they have their own 911 systems, and then they have to interface with Fulton County 911. And I know there's a very specific case in Union County, which ended up being a fatality, where response times were delayed due to Union City 911 and PD not appropriately responding, or at least PD not appropriately responding. So I did want to ask if there are plans to do some interagency education and make sure that those interfaces between all the different 911 networks and PDs are kind of aligned with Fulton County 911 and Fulton County Animal Services.
So just to be clear, if it's Union City, I don't know about Union County, but if it's Union City here in Fulton County, they are dispatched by the same 911 center that's upstairs here. It's the same, they get dispatched on the same, the call comes in to the same place that gets dispatched here. So there's no different. They respond to calls with other agencies. As a matter of fact, I think there's 5 agencies on that channel. They all get dispatched calls all day long, 24/7, 365. So there is no
So there are not different 911s. It's all
the
Fulton
same
County
911.
911. Okay. So then I guess kind of the minus the different 911s.
The only difference is, and let me just be clear. So if you lived in the city of Atlanta and if you dial 911 right here from this building, you're going to get the city of Atlanta. So if you had an animal control call for service and it happened right on prior, you're going to dial 911, you're going to get the city of Atlanta. Atlanta's going to go, what do you have? If it's life safety, they're going to dispatch an Atlanta police officer because it's life safety.
So is that a City of Atlanta operated 911 center or
So
Fulton County?
can we table this for the
Yeah,
next
and
meeting?
Yeah,
perhaps?
so in general, whatever the specific configuration, my request is that we look at how to help other agencies know how to properly prioritize and respond to animal calls, because that's definitely a gap that has been identified and has caused issues.
Noted. Thank you, Marley. With that, there were 2 other remaining items on new business that will get moved to new business for the next board meeting. But we will now move to public comment. Mr. Law, do you have the speakers list? Do we know who's up first?
Yes, so first speaker is Tim Townsend, and I'd just like to remind speakers that you have 2 minutes each, and the timer will go off when your time is up. Mr. Townsend, you can step forward, please. So, Madam Chair, my apologies. It's Mr. Ingram. There was a Tim Townsend that signed up for public speaking, but it's no longer here.
How you doing? Charles Ingram. I'm just curious, even with the 911 calls and Lifeline hears about it, why do they hide information from Detective Dwyer? When they know, my mother was mauled August 1st, Union City. I couldn't get nowhere with animal services. I talked with I think it was a Sergeant Murray, but she had other officers, her officers, that were hiding text messages and the report and the incidents from Captain Dwyer. So, are y'all going to start supervising these guys more? 4 dogs were utilized before she can get bite modes, swab them for DNA, go on their bellies. So basically my mother's case was closed because there was no evidence. She didn't hear about it until she seen me 13 days later on Channel 5 News. She wasn't notified from day one. It took them almost 2 weeks to get all the dogs off the property. 2 weeks. With Union City failing to go to the actual report instead of going to another reported, missing person report, she laid there another 30 minutes getting mauled. Her glasses were on the scene. Her sandals were on the scene. And basically, Officer Kim was training 2 officers at the scene. I have it all on body camera. I have it all on body camera. I have it in the report where they hid, the director and Kim hid the messages from Detective Dwyer. So what procedures are y'all going to take now? That's what I want to know. Because I know where I'm going to take it. What are y'all gonna do? You know, how are y'all gonna keep this from happening to somebody else's mom, sister, child, daddy? How many other things have been swept under the rug? I mean, if you hide something this serious, what else has Lifeline hid that the county don't know about? What have they hid? Because apparently you didn't care about a human life. You know, are the county phones going to be managed, or are they going to be monitored?
Thank you, Mr. Ingram. That's your turn.
Okay.
Thank you for coming in today. Who is next on the speakers list?
Next speaker is Robbie Caban.
Well, it's sad that that gentleman's mother had to be mauled to death by a pack of dogs in Fulton County, and that I've had to operate an online forum for a decade when kids were mauled to death in my neighborhood, and people continue to reach out to me for a decade, and I was a whistleblower and banned and not allowed to Friendly Finder, your favorite program, not allowed to foster, not allowed to volunteer. And what that gentleman is talking about is serious. This is not just an adoption agency. I am an animal lover. I've had to put down so many animals who've been mauled in my presence. My animals were seized illegally by Lifeline and euthanized without my consent. What are y'all going to do? Attorney Bowman, Attorney Sapp, I've reached out to you. There's been no comment in regards to this situation. Do you think it's okay? Where's the timer in here, by the way? Do you think it's okay, Ms. Levy, that a whistleblower is banned? That this organization requires confidentiality agreements? That people are mauled to death for a decade? Where is the timer in here? Why aren't people... Where is the timer in here, sir? There's no timer in here is the answer. And this is the game that's played. People ask a question, and it's a circle. You cannot do this with lives or sentient beings. It's unacceptable. Our taxes are high. We deserve service. I could go on. This CEO, of course I'm livid because of what's happened. Do you know how many suggestions we have provided that you've ignored? Corporate sponsorship. This looks like a kangaroo show, a facade. And as a taxpayer, it's unacceptable. Is that the time, sir?
That's your time. Thank you. With public comments now done, since there was two speakers and they have completed their portion, we can move to adjourn the meeting. Could I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, before you do, I wanted to raise the issue of scheduling the next meeting or perhaps the next round of quarterly meetings.
Oh, yes. So, based on our requirement to meet on a quarterly basis, we can at least set the first meeting of next year, and at that meeting we can schedule the remainder of the quarterly meetings. This looks like the next meeting would fall under January, do I have that right, or February? February. So in looking at February, I believe there's a,
Well, I do have a question as a board member, and that was one of the things in the new business is how can we get more frequent meetings? How as a board? And I think that's something that we need to discuss because every quarter is so much time that's passing by. So we're not able to resolve or really be effective, if that makes sense.
I think we just need to get a proposal, but we'll probably have to do that at the next board meeting because we are pressed for time, and, yeah, we're running.
So is it possible I could put a motion on the floor and have a discussion about that so that we can, because we can, all it takes is a vote to be able to change to more frequent meetings.
Yes, so you can do that by having a discussion, you can make a motion to schedule meetings on different intervals. As the chair said, there's a requirement that y'all all meet quarterly, but there's nothing that prevents you from having more frequent meetings. From a legal standpoint, all you have to do is make sure that you're complying with the notice requirements and the Open Meetings Act, so that public notice is provided for those meetings if that's what the board chooses to do.
Okay, and then I know we only have, this is our last meeting for the year, so how do we proceed forward? Will we be in compliance? How often are we supposed to vote on chair, vice chair? I just want to make sure, because I'm on other boards where we have to make sure we're in compliance.
Yeah, I believe we can double check, but I believe that's just every calendar year the board would go through that process again. Most boards do operate in that manner. So once the first of the year comes, the first meeting of the board, when you reconvene, you would go through that process again. And we'll confirm that, but it's also in the board's bylaws as well.
All right, thank you. With that, is it possible we can have a meeting sooner than February?
I think since we're pretty low on time, and we also have the holidays coming up in November and December, and January, I personally think that a meeting in like early February would work best. And I think we should table this conversation, but plan to engage with it at the next meeting.
Yep, so in essence of time, we can look to schedule the next meeting, and if we're following the quarterly cadence to meet the requirements stated in our bylaws, the next quarterly meeting would fall likely around, keeping to Mondays, February 9th, which is the second Monday of February. Do we need to vote on that date? Okay, so.
Possible to do it in January?
My recommendation is February 9th to maintain the quarterly requirement, unless somebody has a different date in mind. No other dates? Okay. Could I get a motion for the next meeting to be held on February 9th at 5:30 p.m.?
Motion to have the meeting on February 9th, 2026 at 5:30 p.m.
Second.
All right, so motion was set by Katie Factor, seconded by Marley Wiggins. All in favor of the next board meeting to be February 9th, 2026 at 5:30 p.m. All right, all in favor, okay. Majority for February 9th would be the next Animal Welfare Board meeting. Now we can move to adjourn the meeting. Could I get a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I second.
All right. Motioned by Yoshina Bradford Colbert, seconded by Katie Factor. All in favor to adjourn the meeting? All right. Unanimous. It is 7:39 p.m. Meeting is now adjourned.